We have with us Mr. M.K. Surana, who's a veteran from the industry. Mr. Surana, you must have seen Donald Trump's tweet where he's talking about imposing additional tariffs on India because of the kind of sourcing we do of crude. What's your first reaction to?
As far as the various tweets have been coming in the last few days, but India is not a country which goes to war or to initiate war with anybody, and normally India is a peace-loving country. But at the same time, we also would not like to be a victim of somebody else's war or a collateral in the process. As far as India is concerned, India. There are some of the products in India are subsidized basically, like LPG and even petrol and diesel, which are not subsidized. But for that also the prices were kept constant for a long time because of the volatility in the oil market. So I'm not sure whether what is being said that India is selling in open market. In India, the oil market is basically 90% of that is with the PSU oil companies, and we sell for satisfy the country's demand. And only when there is surplus, it gets exported. And as far as the refining capacities of India, it is not that it is set up today. It has been there for a long time. So I am not very sure about the comments which are being made that we are selling in open market or whatever it is. India has got a refining capacity. We satisfy our domestic demand, and then only what is remaining gets exported. Now, as far as the purchase of oil is concerned, whatever is most economic, that we buy. The refineries will buy. And that everybody is doing. EU has been buying LNG from Russia, or China has been buying crude from Russia. So it is not only India. So I am not very sure that what is the reason for him to single out India. It may be something to use as a pressure tactics for the trade discussions, or to pressurize Russia for the ultimatum which he has given for ceasefire.
That's right, Mr. Surana. Maybe he's using India as a pressuring tactics to get Russia to come to the table and ceasefire with respect to the Russia-Ukraine war. But from Indian perspective, even though we use a bulk of the crude for domestic consumption, especially a lot of public sector refineries are doing the same thing. Can you give us a sense of what could be the alternate source in the case if he goes ahead and puts additional tariff? Because if you look at some of the data which we have from DGCIS, it says that in the year 2024 we imported crude worth nearly $147 billion, and really nearly 38% or so came from Russia. If we were to if we have to avoid the additional tariffs or secondary tariffs as Trump is talking about, what could be the additional source for us for crude going forward?
No, as far as sourcing of crude is concerned, that is not an issue, because some 3 years back we were hardly buying anything from Russia, and we were buying from Middle East, African countries, and some other countries, even Far East countries also. So as far as availability of the crude is concerned, even US also. Okay. So as far as availability is concerned, that is not a problem. Sourcing is not a problem. As far as pricing is concerned, currently the discount on Russian crude may be hardly $2 to $3. So it is not a very big amount also. So, and the crude prices are international commodity. They are internationally determined based on supply-demand situation. So I don't think a big direct impact on us as far as concerned, because even if let's say we are buying around 1.5 million barrels a day or something like that, and if there is a discount of even $2, it will be what, $1 to $2 billion. But the larger issue is, if the Russian barrels goes out of the market, then Russia export around 4.5 million barrels of crude per day. Now, if those all barrels have to go out, then it will have an impact on the overall crude prices, and that will affect all the countries, including India, including US, everybody. So the larger issue is not whether India is buying or not buying. The larger issue should be whether the Russian barrels go out of the complete supply chain, or they continue to be supplied. As far as they are there in the supply chain, whether India is buying or not buying, it is not going to make a big difference.
Yeah. Mr. Surana, you spoke about the fact that there could be oil shock that can come in. especially if the Russian crude goes out of circulation. The concern is that if Russian crude goes out of circulation, and the pressure comes on the other countries to make up for that crude, there could be a spike in the oil prices that happens. And if that is so, there could be a crude price shock that could come for emerging countries like India, who are dependent on importing of crude. So what could be that impact that we can see if that happens?
See, we also need to be conscious that currently the crude oil market is oversupplied. In last 4 or 5 months, the OPEC countries have rolled back their voluntary cut in a much accelerated fashion than what it was supposed to be, even current month also. So there is an additional supply. The second thing is there are demand concerns. Overall, globally, there are demand concerns. So the impact will get moderated to that extent, number one. But the question is that even suppose, let's say, India is not going to buy, whether China is also not going to buy, or whether this Russian crude barrel will not be there in the market at all. So it is not as simple a question whether India is buying or not buying, and just because India is not buying, whether the Russian barrels will go out of market. As far as the overall supply-demand balance is concerned, if the Russian barrels remains in the system somewhere, then the shock is not going to be there. It will be limited volatility to the extent based on the news flows which come. But if there is
Mr.
really a
Surana,
situation
just
which
hold
I
on for a
feel
moment.
lesser possibility,
Uh, we have Mrs. Sonana. Hold on for a moment. We have Mr. Narendra Taneja as well joining us. Mr. Taneja, you must have seen the Trump tweet, which talks about imposing additional tariff on India because India is sourcing crude from Russia and selling it in open market. And we had Mr. Surana saying that we don't sell it in open market. We use it for our domestic consumption. What the impact of this additional tariff, especially if we stop taking crude and the Russian crude goes out of market?
You see, first of all, there are no sanctions by America or by European Union or by any country, on Russia in terms of export of oil. There are no sanctions on Russian oil. The U.S. doesn't have any. There are no sanctions. The question is, since there are no sanctions, there are many countries which are importing Russian oil. Turkey, which is a member of NATO, is importing Russian oil. China, which is also a friend of the United States, is importing. We are also importing. That's a sovereign decision of the government of India, and moreover, these are all Indian refiners are importing based on commercial consideration. In terms of he saying that selling in open market, we don't sell crude oil in the open market, not even a single drop. What we sell are petroleum products. So we import crude from 40 different geographies, refine them in India, and we sell to 106 countries, including via spot market if there are buyers. If he's referring to that and calling that open market, there are American companies also selling in open market, both petroleum products and crude oil. So what's wrong with it? There are no sanctions. Since there are no American sanctions on Russian oil, and he's not talking of the price like the European Union is, then where is the issue and what is the issue? It appears the issue seems to be basically, twofold. Number one is a tactic to put pressure on India to fall, in line so that, the trade deal can happen along the lines, dotted lines that the U.S. wants. That's number one. Number two, this way probably is to put pressure on Moscow, on Russia, so that they come to the negotiating table and agree along the lines that they want. That means Ukraine and the United States. So where India comes into the picture? So I think we don't need to worry. One thing is very clear. If, thanks to these tweets or their pressure or their tactics, if Russian oil disappears from the global market, the chunk that India imports, we are talking of roughly, 4.5 million barrels of crude that Russia pumps into the global supply chain and 2.5 million barrels of petroleum products. What will happen to that? The price of, crude oil and petrol, product prices will go up globally. And who is the biggest consumer of oil? The United States. Who is the second largest importer of crude oil? The United States. Who consumes the maximum oil? The United States. So American consumers, especially those who are not that well off, those who don't live in New York and San Francisco, they will be the worst hit. So before it hits India or any other country, American consumer will be first hit, and it will also lead to inflation in the United States. Can President Trump afford it? high inflation, thanks to the tweet or thanks to the, whatever they are trying to do in terms of to force Russian oil out of the global supply system. So I don't think we need to worry. We are doing everything in accordance with the international law, and we are doing everything in accordance with the international oil practices. There is nothing that we are doing with the guerrilla. Whether we import from Russia, we import from any country, including the United States or Mars or Venus and all that, that's India's sovereign decision. And Indian companies are take decisions, both public sector and private sector, based on commercial consideration. And in America, which has always championed market forces, market freedom, capitalism, and all that, they should know these things better than us.
Mr. Taneja, I mean, how should Indian government react to it? Because if US goes ahead and puts secondary tariff on India because of whatever the reason that Trump has, and which may not be of which may not be cogent in as we speak, there will be an impact on other sectors because of this secondary tariff coming into play. What happens in that case?
You see, there are two things. First of all, India and America are strategic partners. You see, it's not limited to only oil or from Russia. Indian and moreover, India-America strategic relationship is very institutionalized. It has got institutionalized over the past 30 years. It includes multilateral institutions. It includes several kind of agreements, including Quad and all that. So I think that's number one. So therefore, and everything is going very smooth as far as the strategic partnership is concerned. President Trump is likely to visit India for the Quad summit, which is actually scheduled end of next month. So I think, and there will be Prime Minister of Japan and other Quad countries also participating in that. So that is the kind of relationship that India and the United States have, which is very deep, which is basically aimed at containing China in Asia. That is the aim. And there, America needs India. America cannot contain China in Indo-Pacific without India's participation. They know it very well. And we need the United States in order to, have investment and also for, kind of economic development that we want. So it's a kind of, mutual relationship, and both countries call this relationship strategic. But this does not mean that we will compromise or we should compromise with our strategic autonomy in terms of our relations with other countries. Russia is also a very, very important country, a strategic partner, and there are many things that we depend on Russia. There are many things they depend on us. And moreover, it's very independent of our strategic, very close, very warm relationship with the United States. So I think we don't need to worry. We all know by now President Trump and his tweets and so forth. Let our diplomats and, handle all these issues. But one thing is very clear. President Trump seems to be very upset. He wants India to sign the trade deal on dotted lines so that he can announce, look, another country has signed along the lines that he wanted. But that's not how India functions. Look at the history of India. We have always respected, we are extremely careful, we are very protective of our, strategic autonomy. And there is going to be, I don't think, whichever party is in power, talk to any political party in India, as far as, our strategic autonomy is concerned, strategic independence is concerned, I don't think there are going to be any compromises, as far as India is concerned. And President Trump and his advisors, they should understand it.
Final word from you, Mr. Taneja, before I go to Mr. Surana as well. How will the markets take this tweet? Because such tweets do unnerve the market, especially with respect to secondary tariff and all.
I think that the best thing will be that don't go by the tweet, just see the actions. If there are secondary, sanctions against India, that's what President Trump is talking about. Then you are not only oil, because we import oil worth roughly, there is already a tariff about 14% to 40 to 90%, which means if there is going to be an additional traffic, who is going to be the worst hit? We export petroleum products to them, American consumer. First and foremost. Number two, if there are sanctions against other, exports from India to the United States, such as Apple iPhone and steel and IT services and so on and so forth, you see, it's not going to be that easy. But one message is very clear today, following this, that India needs to find more markets. And India needs to kind of, don't put all eggs in 5 or 6 baskets. We need to focus on regions like Africa, which is home to 1.5 billion people, and there is African Union now kind of trade agreement. We should focus more on Southeast Asia, focus more on the Middle East and other markets. So we should get our lesson, learn our lesson. At the same time, since America is an important strategic partner, they are friends. Friendship is institutionalized. We should not worry too much about it. We should let the diplomats handle it. And markets also, remember, market can have a kind of knee-jerk reaction, but then slowly, once they discover how things function, I think they will understand. But the final one I want to say is that as far as President Trump's effort to force Russian oil out of the global oil supply system, this will be a very bad decision on his part, because before it hits India, before it hits China, before it hits any other country, American consumers will be the first and the worst hit.
Thank you, Mr. Taneja. Mr. Surana, final word with you. Mr. Taneja spoke about sourcing from other geographies like Africa. We've been doing it from Nigeria, Angola, and Gabon. Do you think that we can increase our supplies from these regions?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, and Mr. Taneja was mentioning, we have got the quite diversified sourcing which has been done over a period of time, and India will continue to do so based on the economic considerations. And as far as the impact of the tweet is there, that the market will absorb and they will react in the fashion, because the market goes into a number of many issues which they consider. So I would not like to comment on that. As far as India is concerned, we should see our national interest the primemost and act accordingly. And India has done it in the past very, very responsibly, keeping in mind the international thinking also. So I don't think that we should immediately start reacting to individual tweets, because then otherwise we are only creating a hullabaloo about something.
Thank you, Mrs. Surana, for joining us today. Of course, our guests are talking about, we should diversify our sourcing for crude oil imports, and also look at the national interest. And let's see how Trump is going to bring in additional tariff, and that's when we can take a final call, or the country can take a final call on the sourcing of crude.